On today's Writing Done Right, we want to talk about how to get your manuscript from being a disheveled mess into something polished that you are proud to call your own. Thanks for checking out this video by Writing Done Right. I'm Thomas Morosky, an author and a technology consultant. And today we want to get into just a little bit more about writing processes and writing tips. Not as much technology in this one, but hey, I'm out touching grass. Let's talk about the process of writing. In fact, I wrote a little draft of a story here last night in this very spot. Looking forward to reading over it a few times and editing it down. But I wanted to talk about how to start with your draft. Now, there is an entire a question about should you be a plotter or a seeder. We're not going to get into those weeds a whole lot. I think I have a video about it. If I do, I'll leave a link to it over here. But the idea behind that is that a plotter is somebody who sits down and plots everything out to whatever detail you want. A seeder is somebody who just rides by the seat of their pants. You just start going and see where the creative juices go. There's no right or wrong. You could do one or other. You could do both. I've practiced both in my life, and honestly, it doesn't really matter which one you get. Both of them can produce really good stories. Sometimes you start plotting and then you go off into seeding because you just think of something in the spur of the moment and run with it. That's what happens in movies a lot of times. They could change a whole movie with changing one or two little scenes in the middle. And oftentimes when they're doing movies, they film multiple different ways it could go. It's really up to the editor. Then you get a cool director's cut or a Criterion's edition, which changes the whole thing, you know. So there's a lot of things that can be said about all of these processes. But it all starts, of course, with a draft. And you start in with the first draft, and most writers will agree, and I'll probably echo this same sentiment, that it's probably good if you are, if you're just writing down, to not stop and do a lot of editing or think about it. Like I think I referenced a forest road number, and I think I have the right forest road, but I didn't stop to verify. I'll stop and verify that when I'm reading through it again and go, oh, was that really that forest road number 160, or did I get that mistaken? I'll fix that in a future edit, because you don't want to break the flow of creativity to research a fact. Worst case, you just put in there and maybe parentheses or highlight or all bold, look up this fact or whatever else, and then just keep going. You don't want to interrupt those creative juices, especially if you're moving and you're flowing and you're actually getting words down on your keyboard. So you start with the first draft, and what I'd like to do personally is I'll do about a minimum of 2 basic draft read-throughs. So I'll do the draft, I'll do just a couple basic editors, and you know, look at the editing of it, and then I might sit on it for a week or two and then do another round of editing. I'll kind of do all that kind of stuff. And then one of the things I'm going to do is on my computers, I have the open source tool called Language Tool. And we've talked about this in the past. This is basically an open source version of like a Grammarly or a ProWritingAid. It doesn't work as well, although I think there's paid editions that might work as well. But you can plug this into LibreOffice on Linux, which is an advantage that you have over Grammarly, ProWritingAid. They don't support LibreOffice on Linux, but Language Tool does. And so I use that, and that really becomes kind of that first pass to check on some of the grammatical things. I will make sure I'm not writing in passive voice, which used to be a big habit of mine, and I'm fortunate now I've overcome that problem. And I've gotten rid of those that's and all sorts of other things that should be clarified in the course of your writing. So I'm going to read through it a couple times. I'm going to use something like Language Tool, and then what I'm actually going to do is I pull mine out segments at a time, and I'm going to use ProWritingAid. Grammarly's an alternative, although I like ProWritingAid because it's always been a privacy-focused system. Grammarly, at least in its past, has said in their terms of service that they have collected your information for whatever purposes they want to collect information for, and I don't like that kind of stuff. ProWritingAid, that's my one. I actually have an affiliate link for that. I think it's tlm.li/PWA. But you can use ProWritingAid, and that'll give you a lot better grammar tips, and I do it in smaller chunks and really spend some time dwelling on it. Now, then what I might do is I will probably have some others read it, not like a full-fledged editor, just run it by some other people. Invariably, they'll catch one or two things that I have most likely missed, so that's something that I'll end up doing. And then ultimately, I like reading aloud. So I usually record my own audiobooks, and I usually do the audiobooks before publishing. And this way, reading something aloud slowly gives you a lot better clue, because you catch those things that you know in your writing process what you meant to say, but if you're reading it silently over to yourself or even doing an edit, you may miss those things. But if you're reading it out loud slowly, you're going to catch a whole lot more things that you had previously missed. So I usually do that. Once I get all that done, I'm usually pretty much ready to go. Now, there is one extra step. Consider actually working with an editor. Now, at the writers' conference I was just at, one of the editors actually said, hey, you shouldn't have to hire me for all of your works. She says, you should only really have to hire me a couple of times. Once you've hired me a few times, you will get a chance to see what your problems and error and pain points are, and you should be teachable to learn how to work with those and get past those issues and really move beyond the errors that you have. And so it comes a point in time that if you're doing a book, it might always be worth throwing the $1,000 or so at an editor. Now, an edit can take, $1,000 to $5,000 depending on the complexity and what type of edit you're doing, and you have to consider that. Whereas if you're doing like beta readers, is oftentimes what I'll do. I'll go into my supporters. I'll say, hey, we have a book. We're calling for beta readers, and I'll pick 20 people. They are opting to read the book. Now, I'm not asking them to do line edits, but again, they're going to catch the most common mistakes that come out and let me know what those are. And for me, I personally, this is a controversial point, I'm not trying to pass an English teacher's writing class. I'm not trying to get an A+ in grammar. I'm trying to get a story that works, it's concise, it's consistent, it's easy to read, and it flows. Now, I like to use a emeritus pastor named Erwin Lutzer. He writes a lot of books, and they're not the highest quality grammar, but they're all simple, they're easy to read, you learn a lot from them. That's what I want my writing to be before having absolute every single point of grammar exactly right. Now, you do have to consider where you are sending that writing to. Since I publish a lot of my own work, or I might send writing out to magazines, I've done a few articles in a few different online magazines, usually let their writing editors do things, and unless they're changing something really in the point, I'm going to let them do some of those editorial changes, because they might be using the Chicago manual style or the MLA, and I'm not as up to date on those. So obviously the periodical or the book or the publisher may want a certain form of style. You do need to work with an editor to get those out. But if you're just doing your own thing, you're writing stories for your blog or for your own books or for things that you have more control over, you don't need to take that extra step if it's not something that is required for what you are doing. But utilizing this process, I will have read through everything that I'm doing multiple times, and having read through everything that I'm doing multiple times, I will actually have a very good, very concise story at the end of what I'm doing. And that is how I get something from being a disheveled mess into a polished piece ready for the world to read. So those are our tips on editing. Let me know your thoughts. I hope that we have helped you to get your writing done right.